Hello, it's Richard at Richard's Guitars, and today we are going to cover the exciting topic of tuning your guitar, but in the style that hopefully will give you so much more benefit than just learning to tune your guitar. I'm hoping that from today's lesson a whole world could open up of understanding, and I'm hoping that that is not taking this to, not blowing this up more than it is, but I do think that if you follow today's video, you are going to have a much better understanding of the fretboard than what you may already have, just from following this little bit of advice. So let's try and do it. I'll try not to bore you to death, try and get through it as quickly as possible. We'll get through it quicker if you've looked at the last video. The last video was about intervals, and I don't want to bore you by going over that. But hopefully, if you've watched my previous video, about understanding intervals, then a lot more of this is going to make sense. So it's important to follow things through in the chain. So let's go. Now today what I'm going to do is give you a much better understanding of why your guitar, not why it's tuned, but how it's tuned, and it's going to explain why the notes fall where they do, and by understanding where they fall and why they fall where they do, lots of scale patterns that you might have seen, or as you start to learn your scale patterns, they will make a lot more sense. And by the end of this video, you're also going to be able to literally create your own scale patterns using the major scale. So in the last video we covered the major scale, but we didn't really cross the strings. We were learning it along the top E string, and we learned the intervals that make up the major scale. So you hopefully have that as a reference point now. So have you ever tuned your guitar using the finger at the 5th fret concept? You may well have done that before. So if you're a complete beginner, this might be new to you. If you've been playing guitar for years, you've probably been doing this for years. But it doesn't matter if you've been doing it for years, because I'm hoping to bring you some extra information here that will really help you a lot. So, okay, so what we've got then is our finger at the 5th fret. Now, what that gives us is the interval of a 4th, which should make sense to you. So we've got the open note, and then we've got the 4th. So that distance, dum, dum, that's a 4th. Okay, now it's really important you understand that. And on the last video that I did, I highlighted this 4th, interval of a 4th, as an important interval to know. And this is the reason why. The reason why is because your strings are nearly all tuned to a 4th. Okay, the distance between all of them, apart from one string, and I'll explain that in a minute. So let's have a look at this. So if we go between the E string and the A string, okay, what we might call the 6th string going to the 5th string, that distance between those two notes is what's called a 4th. And just to cover the basics, if this is the first time you've ever looked at, because I want to blend this to make sure that there are some basics that are covered, and once we've said it once, we don't have to say it again. But you may or may not know the open strings, so let me just quickly whiz through that. So E, A, D, G, B, and E. So those are our 6 strings. 6 strings on the guitar: E, A, D, G, B, E. That's really important. If you don't know that, you need to learn that quick. Okay, so there's your 6 notes on the fretboard. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to explain how that knowledge of those strings helps us understand how to play all over the fretboard. It's actually going to be quite interesting, hopefully. So let's do that thing again then, where we went E to A. So E to A is a fourth. Even if we forgot what the notes were, we know the distance between the E string and the A string is a fourth. And then we tend to check that by by putting our finger here at the 5th fret, and we check it against the A. And if our guitar's in tune, they should be the same. And of course they should be the same, because that is a fourth from there, and that is a fourth from there, in terms of the interval of the sound. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So that makes a fourth, and from here to here is a fourth. Okay? And we know that a fourth is, you should know this, Star Wars. Okay? So that should make sense to you because of the last video. So let's go on to the next string now. So we're going to go from the A to the D. So if let's say for example, now can you hear that? Let's say for example that was out of tune. So let me tune the D down a bit. So if that was out of tune, it doesn't sound right. We just know it doesn't sound right because we're used to now hearing and referencing that note in our mind. We're expecting it to be Star Wars. If it's not Star Wars, it's not in tune. And the way to practice doing this, I suggest you have your tuner on your headstock here, tune your guitar up to pitch, and start practicing. So actually get your guitar tuned up with the tuner so it's all correct. And then just experiment putting your finger on the 5th fret and testing it against the string below. Right, okay, yeah, I can hear that's the same note. Oh yeah, I can hear that same note. You're just getting used to it, going, okay, the distance between that open string and the 5th fret is an interval of a fourth. It's at the 5th fret, but it's an interval of a fourth. That distance in sound is a fourth. Covered it in the last video. And the distance between the open string and the string below is a fourth. It now makes sense to us. Okay, right, so the distance between A and D must be a fourth. So we just know that now. A to D is a fourth, okay? So let's now go between D and G. And you can hear it. That's a fourth. And in the diagram that should be above my shoulder, it's all showing you there as well, that sort of line between the open string and the 5th fret, that interval of a fourth recurring. So we know those are tuned to a fourth as well. But this is where it gets interesting, because now we've got the G going through to the B. So if you listen to this, does this sound like Star Wars? Now it doesn't, okay? So what does it sound like? So now interestingly, if I hear that now, I'm hearing, do you remember what that was in our last video? It was Kumbaya. So that distance between the G and B is a major third. And we talked about it along the bass string before. The distance between the E and the third, which would have been an A, is a major third. Okay? So we... see, I have to make sure that I'm not telling you any porcupines when I 1, 2, 3, and it's not. I knew it's not an A. it's a G sharp. Okay, so a major third in this case is G sharp. So I'm not starting this video again. So yeah. So I knew I was wrong because I said it, and maybe I can edit the video later. But E, F sharp, G sharp. When we're doing a major scale along the one string. Okay, so Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my lord. That was down that bass string, and now we're up here. It's the same relative distance between the strings, and that's called a major third. Now that's really, really important, because in order to make that string sound like a fourth, we just have to put our finger there, and so we're now 1 fret further down. And now we've got Star Wars back. Okay? Now this is the reason why when you're tuning your guitar, that instead of putting your finger at the 5th fret, you put your finger at the 4th fret when you're going between the G and the B. Because we're no longer looking for a 4th, we're looking for a major 3rd. So from the G to, there's the major 3rd. It's 4 frets down rather than 5 frets down. Now does that make sense? It's really important that makes sense to you, okay? So because you're going to find this so valuable in terms of understanding this whole scale patterns. And when you start looking at scale patterns, you're going to see that everything shifts down by 1 on that string. And it's all because of the tuning at these open strings. That is, it's something that is ignored and not mentioned to so many beginners, and they're left confused. Let me give you a quick example. I'll just finish off to the top, and then I'll give you that sample I was telling you about. It's really important. So now let's say, for example, we've just done the Kumbaya. So we know that's a major 3rd. So between the G to the B is a major 3rd. And now we're going to go from the B to the E. And it's back to normal again. So we're looking for Star Wars. And I used Apache from Shadows as well. Anyway. So Star Wars. Now, okay, so E to A is a 4th. A to D is a 4th. D to G is a 4th. G to B is a major 3rd, so it's just a little 1 fret difference. So it's 4 frets rather than 5. Because it's 4 rather than 5, we put our finger there instead of there, and then we go back to 5th. Okay? Now why is this useful? For years and years and years, this is just one tiny little aspect of this. For years people have come into my shop and they've seen me tuning the guitar, and they look at me and I you know, I'm slightly embarrassed because it looks like I'm a wizard tuning the guitar up. So so let's say, for example, let's say the guitar's a bit out of tune. Oh, actually that sounds really cool. You are going to love this. That was not deliberate, okay? But my ears instantly picked that. Oh, I might be totally wrong. But what I just think I just did there was I played an E major chord. And I believe what I must have just done, without even knowing it, is tuned the G string down by a semitone, and I've made my major chord minor. Because you can hear it just sounds sad. And I bet you if I just put my finger here, I'll turn that E major, this will now become E major. that worked, that was ace. I couldn't have done that if I'd tried. I could not have done that if I'd tried deliberately. I've just turned my guitar. So what I've just created there, you could argue, is a kind of form of open tuning. I've tuned my guitar exactly down by half a step on one string. But let's try and find it. Let's try and, even though I now know already what I've done, let me just now try and find it. So what we'd do is we'd listen to the first 2 strings. Okay, that sounds in tune. Why does it sound in tune? It sounds in tune because I'm listening for Star Wars or Apache. The lower the frequency, the slightly harder it is to hear it too. So you sometimes you might have a song that you better suited to, or something that you can connect with. But the low E is always, my ears get a bit stodgy at the lower registers. Let's just. I'm just admiring my Gordon Smith guitar here. Isn't that amazing? Look at the tortoiseshell binding. It's incredible. And it's a look at that chocolate roasted maple neck. Yeah. We want the. So that's fine. That is our Apache. Hopefully you're with me here. So now we're going to we're going to check the tuning of the A to the D. That sounds fine because I can hear Star Wars. Okay, let's try the D to the G. Wow, that just so is not Star Wars. So because I'm trying to hear Star Wars, because I know it should be Star Wars, I'm not hearing Star Wars. So I know it's wrong. So I want to be hearing do do da 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 da. So da 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 da. So it's got to go up. Yeah, it's got to go up. So I'll just keep going up till I hear Star Wars. So I'm hearing Star Wars now. This is why this is really good to do with a tuner. Now I've got a tuner here now, and it's telling me, it's telling me I'm bang on, bang on. It just went green, and it slightly flipped off green actually. There you go. There's the G. Oh, can you see the green? The green. There you go. That's the G. So it is in tune. So I managed to get that right. So the more you practice tuning your guitar by ear, so let's go. You can now, if you put a bit of time and effort into it, you can tune your guitar by ear. Now, one of the negatives of doing it too much at the beginning, if you don't use your tuner, you might start finding your ears are kind of just like not quite with it yet, and you're not quite hearing the sound, so you might start tuning your guitar and breaking strings. So I would suggest keeping your tuner on your headstock as a reference, but use it as a reference, as a backup to using your ears. Because by using your ears, you're hearing the musicality of the notes. We're only tuning our guitar, but we are hearing the importance of the notes. We're hearing the notes. Now, so I'm hoping this is making some sense already, like the reason why you might want to learn this stuff. Because we're using our initial knowledge of intervals to now help us understand the tuning of our guitar. We now know it's tuned to a fourth all the way through, apart from between the G and the B, and that's tuned to a major third. Okay, that has then taught us that the same note we would expect to be 5 frets down on each string as the open string. So in other words, every note that we hear here at the 5th fret, we should be hearing a duplicate of at 5 frets below it. That is really, really, really important, and I'm going to show you why in a second. Everything repeats 5 frets down and the next string down. The only time it doesn't do that is when you're on the B string and it's 4 frets down. Okay? So this is incredibly, incredibly helpful. Let me show you why. Let's say, for example, I'm going to show you two, I'm trying to keep time down, but I want to show you 2 samples or examples of where this can open up a whole world to you. So we learnt the major scale along one string, right? So let's say, for example, we want to start building up a major scale from here, the A. So I'm just going to start building up an A major scale. Okay, fine. What's the first note? Well, we know it's an A. What's the second note? You should be able to tell me now because you've watched the other video. The second note is a tone up from there. Okay. The third note is a tone up because we know it goes tone, tone, then semitone. So it's root, tone, tone. If this does not make sense, what I'm saying here, you've got to watch the other video. There's no stone that I will leave unturned. I will give you every single element of information you need to know this stuff. So if you're confused, it's just because you haven't watched something, and it just means 20 minutes of your life you need to allocate to learning it. So just get back to the other video if you're lost at this point. So root, tone, tone. Now then, you can see I'm getting a bit stretched out there. Okay, I'm covering 4 frets, and I'm getting a bit stretched out here. So root, tone, tone. Now then, so the next note, hopefully you know, is going to be semitone. That's the next note of my major scale, right? So root, tone, tone, semitone. I don't want to go to that note because I've run out of fingers. So I want to find it on the next string down. Well, how do we do that? Well, we know now. We know it's 5 frets down on the next string down, because I told you that's what the whole video has been about. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, string down, bang, same note. So listen to this. Okay? couldn't be easier. So we've gone root, tone, tone, semitone. So we know that the scale goes tone, tone, semitone. Then we know we've got 3 tones in a row. So let's do that. Root, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. And now we've got to go right up here. We can't go here because it's way out of our lick. It's way out, isn't it? Okay, so we want to go to here. We want to go 5 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's just there. So I want you to hear it again. Root, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 and we end on a semitone. There you go. That's your major scale. So we've just played an A major scale. By what? We've never seen that scale before. I've never taught you that scale before. You may never have even seen the scale before. You may have heard of it before. You may have even played it and forgotten it once. But now, if you get your pen and paper, you can start scribbling that scale out. Tone, root, tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. You've been skipping strings, creating your own scale. How amazing is that? Now, once you've learnt that, learn it here. Because the sound, the relative distances are always the same. They just move up and down the fretboard. Yeah? I'm hoping that penny is dropping here. Now, maybe you're a bit of a blues player, or maybe you know a bit of blues. I'm gonna try and make this work. So I'm going to just imagine, for example, we've got, and I'm going to try and think of something. So, right, okay. That'll do. I'm going to play just 3 notes. Okay, so I'm going to play the 5th fret on the G, 3rd fret on the G, and then the 5th fret on the D. Okay, it's a little simple 3-note thing that you can play over the 4 chord. In this case, the C7. I'm playing a C7 chord. For anyone who doesn't understand, I'm playing a C7. None of this, you don't need to understand any of the theory behind this. I just want you to see the little note thing I'm doing. I could put a bend in there. Anything, doesn't matter what it is. I know it starts here, right, on the G string. So why not go 5 frets down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can play the exact same riff down here. What I'm trying to tell you here is you don't even need to know all these patterns and shit. You do, you're going to learn them, but what if you could already know where to find them? You don't just have to learn them parrot fashion from someone who said to you, hey, here's a lick in the 4th position. Oh, right, okay, that's a 4th position lick. In fact, if I was to whiz through this, yeah, it's a 3. I could create a video going, oh, right, 3rd position pentatonic. I could have called that a position 3 minor pentatonic riff. If it was in A minor, anyway. But that all sounds horribly complicated now. There's nothing complicated about what I just did. I found something that worked here. I'm running out of time, and I now go 5 frets down, and I can still do the same thing. And we know that there is the same note is appearing 5 frets down on the next string down. It means that we can use that knowledge to do all sorts of stuff, like chopping up a major scale and putting it onto the next string down. Or it might be getting a riff that we know and try practicing it further up the fretboard, where we know we're going to find the same notes. The same notes are going to repeat. Okay? Just that little bit of complication between the G and the B. You've got to get your head around that. So that string, when you go back and try and find the notes, you'll only be going 4 frets down on that one and 5 frets for the other ones. So you've got to kind of bear that in mind. But have an experiment with it. See if this unlocks anything for you and let me know. I'll be really interested to know. Okay. Hopefully that has been of some value. Fingers crossed. Keep my fingers crossed. Keeps it useful for you. Okay. See you soon then. Okay, thanks very much. Bye. Bye.